Well, here we are again. The nonstop witch hunt against President Trump continues. They tried Russian collusion. They tried January 6th. They tried raiding his home. None of it's worked. He's polling stronger than ever in virtually every single battleground state. So now a corrupt attorney general in New York is filing a lawsuit against him and his family. And it ain't going to work either. We're going to expose what's really going on here, and we're going to see precisely why, to the Democrats' horror, the Trump train is unstoppable. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, helping you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and also make sure to click on that link below and head on over to my special website for the Ready Project food supply. We all know that we cannot wait for emergencies to happen before we respond to one, and no one, and I mean no one, makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than our good friends over at the Ready Project Food Supply. Gang, they are simply the best. They're patriots. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage, include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And if you act right now, you're going to save 25% off a full 4-week emergency food supply when you click on that link below to my special website. So whatever you do, do not wait. I got my emergency food supply. Make sure you at least start on yours. Click on that link below or go to getreadywithsteve.com and save 25% off your very own 4-week emergency food supply today. All right, let's dive right in here, gang. Political strategist Dick Morris has a great piece out today in the Western Journal, and he makes the overall argument that the latest lawsuit filed against President Trump and his family, I mean, think about that, against his family, his 3 grown children, is ultimately rooted in the fact that the Democrats fear Trump more than anyone else. I mean, fear, I would add desperation. These are the 2 things that are behind the latest lawsuit. In fact, I would say fear and desperation are the linchpins, the connective tissue between this lawsuit and the FBI raids on Mar-a-Lago and on other MAGA figures like Mike Lindell. And I would certainly add the J6 Kangaroo Committee, headed by the resoundingly defeated outgoing shame of a congresswoman, the petty and petulant and utterly insufferable Liz Cheney. And I'm sure you know, the heinously corrupt opportunist New York Attorney General Letitia James filed a $250 million civil lawsuit against President Trump and his 3 adult children, Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka, accusing the Trump real estate empire of falsifying Trump's net worth in order to minimize his company's tax bills while getting favorable treatment from banks and insurance companies. Now, if you don't know who this Democrat Attorney General Letitia James is, why don't we let one of her New York colleagues, Representative Claudia Tenney, introduce her to you?
Yeah, this is a complete political hit job. It's been what Letitia James's entire mission has been, a political mission to take down Donald Trump. It's not about helping senior citizens across New York who've been scammed. It's not about dealing with New York's horrible crime crisis, which is facing New Yorkers across the state. She represents the entire state of New York, not just New York City. There's millions of people that need help from our Attorney General to enforce the laws, but she is particularly obsessed with trying to get Donald Trump. The mission is to get Donald Trump, his family, and remember something, Donald Trump is no longer a resident of New York State. He's provided millions of dollars in taxes and income to the state of New York as a native New Yorker. But this is really getting to a level where, of course, Michael Henry, who is our statewide candidate for Attorney General, is actually in the lead because people loathe Letitia James.
Right.
She is following in the footsteps of Andrew Cuomo, disgraced former prosecutor Schneiderman, Elliot Spitzer. And by the way, she is the most corrupt and she is the most political. And I just named some pretty political attorney generals in the past. She's also what we call in New York an aspiring governor. That's another word for another term for AG.
Yes.
She wants to take out anyone in her place. She tried to take out Andrew Cuomo and forced him out of office without due process. As bad as Andrew Cuomo is and was, and I am not a defender of Andrew Cuomo, he was never afforded due process. Now the former president and his family aren't going to get due process. You know what I think about this right now? I'm a practicing lawyer in New York State. I have an obligation under the ethical considerations as a lawyer to think about possibly bringing a case against Letitia James for malicious prosecution for dereliction of her duty as an AG because her obligation is to enforce the law, not to go on witch hunts, not to go after people and target people for political reasons only. She has combed through millions of documents, 3.5 years, as you cite, of investigation. And what have they found? Nothing. She has a civil case against Donald Trump that, by the way, who is she protecting in this case? We're talking about appraisals for multi-trillion-dollar banks. The banks have the resources and the ability, and they do know how to do their own appraisals. I was a bank attorney. I represented banks.
Yeah,
they don't need Donald Trump's appraisals.
Congresswoman,
They don't need Trump's appraisals. Banks obviously do their own due diligence. And Trump's company has been stellar. Look, President Trump himself, of course, has responded, calling it nothing more than a desperate witch hunt that's doomed to fail. I mean, look, even Bill Barr, hardly a Trump loyalist, former Attorney General Bill Barr, a bona fide swamp creature of the deep state, even he said this was an obvious political hit job. I mean, you saw it in that video segment. Letitia James is in danger of losing her job. She's down to her Republican challenger. I mean, seriously, in New York, it shouldn't even be that close. So she's getting desperate to holding on to her own career. But the bigger picture here, and the reason why the left-wing activists disguised as journalists and the legacy media are cheerleading all of this, the bigger picture is that the deep state permanent political class, the whole kit and caboodle, see Trump as their ultimate threat to their ultimate power. I mean, think it through. Morris points it out. In 4 years as president, 2 years as former president, has there ever been a shred of evidence that Trump played fast and loose with our national secrets? And when it comes to classification or even the declassification material, we own the ultimate decision-making authority for such does not rest with unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. The ultimate decision-making authority for classification, declassification rests with the duly elected commander-in-chief, from whom the whole of the executive branch's bureaucracies derive their power. The administrative state does not have autonomous authority, irrespective of democratic processes. Their authority is derived from the commander-in-chief himself. So this is why you got people like Robert Barnes, the lawyer, saying that the FBI and the DOJ are trying to desperately to accuse Trump of a crime he legally can't commit. The president has ultimate decision-making authority in terms of classification, so to accuse Trump of illegally possessing classified documents is a contradiction in terms. And again, all of this is happening under Democrat regimes that conveniently turn blind eyes to the super colossal illegalities going on at the southern border and in their own crime-infested cities where Soros-backed DAs are allowing violent criminals to roam the streets in the name of racial and economic equity. And the good news is that people aren't buying it. A recent poll by the Trafalgar Group found that a clear plurality of likely voters believed the raid on Mar-a-Lago was entirely politically motivated. 87% of Republicans, 53% of independents thought it was nothing more than a hack political hit job. And what's even better, these shenanigans are only increasing Republican solidarity and resolve to shatter the feckless Democrats come November. The poll went on to ask, did the raid increase your motivation to vote in November? Take a look at these numbers. 83% of Republicans, 8 out of 10, said that the Mar-a-Lago raid fired them up all the more to vote in the midterms. And the Trafalgar Group also recently found that 79% of Americans believe that we live in a two-tier justice system that protects political insiders. That's 8 out of 10 Americans. That's also, it's not just here in the United States. It's a very widely held sentiment throughout Europe as well. Populations are increasingly realizing that globalist societies fundamentally create two classes of people, the permanent political class and everyone else. And the permanent political class, as the managerial class that governs and engineers the standardized political and economic systems imposed on all populations, they engineer society in such a way that creates rules for thee but not for me. They engineer society such that political and economic protocols always work in their favor at our expense. The good news, as Dick Morris goes on to write in the article, is none of this is going to work. None of this is going to stop Trump from running for president. None of this is going to stop him from winning in 2024. Not when it's so overwhelmingly perceived as a desperate attempt by the status quo to keep a bona fide champion of the people from power and therefore to keep the people from power. The Democratic deep state is ultimately going to shatter over this. Trump is going to crush him in 2024. And then, it's our turn. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and you'll definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on the latest FBI whistleblower dropping an absolute bombshell. You are not going to want to miss this. So make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless.